Going to go to Ojai, California to start with. I love this. A great place. This is Christine. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hi, Christine.
Oh, hi, Rush. You know, it's like everybody else. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you. Listen, I unfortunately caught some of Hillary's speech that she gave just a little bit ago, and she was citing an agency to talk about the list of things that were going to be most devastating to our economy. The first one being terrorism, the second one being the devastation of Europe, and the third thing, of course, being Donald Trump. What caught my ear was that she was talking about the devastation of Europe, given that all of the policies that this past administration have been implementing, and the idea of single payer, et cetera, et cetera.
What does she mean?
Model.
What did she specifically? Did she say what she means by the devastation of Europe?
No, she was literally going down. She was trying to get to the number 3 reason of things that would harm our economy. So number 1 was they were citing things like terrorism, the devastation of Europe, and then it would be Trump. So just the fact that she mentioned that Europe is devastated, and these are the policies that she wants to continue and implement in this country, I thought was rather interesting.
Well, how did you interpret her meaning the devastation of Europe? I know it's hard. She didn't specify it. So what do you think she's talking about?
I happen to interpret it that she was just reading off of a list, and she didn't realize that what she was saying is that Europe is devastated economically. All the countries are overwhelmed by their immigration policies, their socialist policies economically, the deterioration of their way of life. That's how I interpret it, and I don't think she realized that.
No, she didn't, because I guarantee you, Christine, whatever she's talking about in terms of the devastation of Europe, it's not that. Because she doesn't think anything's wrong with that. You know, we haven't talked about it on this program, the Brexit vote, which is coming up Thursday. This is a vote in Great Britain to exit the European Union. And, folks, this thing is a microcosm for things happening in this country. The people of Great Britain, across party lines, want out of the European Union, and the elites in Great Britain and the elites in the European Union do not. The elites are the only ones doing well, both in individual countries and throughout the European Union as a whole. The elites want it to remain as it is because it's a consolidation of power, and it is the delineation of borders. It turns Europe into a amalgamated set of real estate. They've got borders in there, but they don't really matter much to anything anymore. You're stripping away sovereignty. You're stripping away national identity and languages and so forth, and all this being done ostensibly to compete with the West economically. But they haven't the foggiest idea how to do it because they don't have any capitalists anywhere to be found in the European Union that have any say-so or power whatsoever. But what the real dividing line is in the Brexit vote in Great Britain and throughout the European Union is exactly what it is here. The people of Great Britain are sick and tired of illegal immigration. They're sick and tired. Well, over there it hadn't been illegal. They're sick and tired of their culture being watered down and practically disappearing. They're sick and tired of never-ending immigration and what it means culturally and what it means economically. Not everybody, because you've got a bunch of liberals in Great Britain like you have here. But it's a larger number than you might think, and the Brexit vote is closer than anybody wants it to be. It's gotten to be so close that people are now asking, okay, what are the elites going to do to stack this deck and make sure that they don't lose this? It is, and it's all rooted on immigration issues and how these countries have growing members of the population who are now aware that every one of these countries in the European Union is at risk of losing their own identity and sovereignty. They're still going to have borders, but they won't matter. And you've heard the globalists and their desire for new world order and the end of nation states. That's really what the elites in the European Union want, and they've got their supporters here in the U.S. Anyway, I'll share them with you here just a sec. Greetings, folks. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, the fastest 3 hours in media. We're here at 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, our email address, if you want to go that way, I do check them during the break. I had some fascinating. You would not believe what I just gave you was the best explanation of Brexit. Well, that's all it is. That's exactly what it is. That's what, and the British people. Why is there even a Brexit vote? British exit. They want out of the European Union. Why? It makes perfect sense. If you think the people living their lives are the best ones to determine what they want in their lives, it makes perfect sense why they would want out of it. It's not doing them any good. It's not doing them any good. It's not doing Germany. They're the ones that prop everybody up. They're the ones that have to pay the bills for everybody. Anyway, but Brexit's an international issue. We don't spend a lot of time on international issues here unless they specifically relate, because we just don't have the time. But and Brexit is one of these things that few people are going to take the time to delve into on their own. If they know anything about it, it's what they've heard said in little commentary slices on television. But the Brexit vote is Thursday, and it's much bigger than you think it is. The potential impact is much bigger than you think of it. And not just for Europe, but I don't know about the whole world, but it clearly will have residual impact here, because many of the issues that are being debated and will be voted on are identical here. And the central issue is, when you boil it all down, is it's immigration and money. And money is it, really, first, second, and third. There's so much money, so much power at stake here by the elites, the establishment in Europe, the Western European, the typical Western European socialist, who is considered to be the most sophisticated, erudite, well-bred, this perfect people. And they have set themselves up in charge of Europe under the guise of unifying Europe to make it as competitive as, say, the United States. But the whole European Union got put together for many reasons, but one of the reasons was that Europe actually, it kind of happened because of an observation. First time I went to Europe, I came home and I realized the United States, we've been around the time I had made the trip, 225 years, 200 years, whatever. And I just come home from countries that have been there thousands of years. And I asked myself, how come it is that we are so far ahead in technology, in hygiene, in just basic day-to-day human service? How are we so far ahead of cultures and societies that have been around for thousands of years? And that's when I first began to actually ponder what I consider to be economically and politically serious questions. And the answers to those questions are quite telling. How is it possible? We're not better people. We all have the same DNA. I mean, we're not any better, and exceptionalism and so forth. We're not any better than a European, an Italian, a Greek, or whatever. Why did we so just zoom past everybody? There aren't any individual European nations that are superpowers, and they've been around much longer than we have by factors of 5 and 10 years, centuries. And one of the answers to the question, when I would ask it of a European on subsequent trips, well, look at the United States if it were not united. Let's say that every state was its own nation. And every nation had its own trade deals and had its own president, had its own form of government. Like some of them were socialist, some of them were communist, some of them were capitalist. Some of them are run well, some of them not. Let's say that you couldn't trade. Let's say Missouri and Arizona disagreed, wouldn't trade with each other. California, New York. Well, that's what we're faced with here in Europe. You all are united. You all have one government, you have one system, you're one people, you have states, and you have state power, you have federalism, but we are individual nation states. And they thought, the European Union people thought there was a great, the uniters thought there was a great opportunity to line their pockets and really gain a lot of power by uniting Europe and making it appear to be the United States of Europe. And of course, they did it. And the elites run it. The European Union is in Brussels, and well, it hasn't turned out like they dreamed that it would. But there's so much power and money involved here by the elites that the smart money over there says there's no way the elites are going to let Great Britain exit the European Union. That would destroy it. Great Britain seceding from the European Union, going back to a sovereign nation, not part of the EU, would destroy the EU. And the elites do not want that because that would mean devastating things to them personally. They would lose a lot of people, not citizens of Great Britain, but a lot of leaders, a lot of the establishment over there would lose so much. So they're going to use whatever power they have to rig it any way they can. But if you wade through all of it, the reason Brexit even exists is immigration. The reason Great Britain has even proposed exiting the European Union is immigration. Immigration is in the process of erasing national identities in Europe. By design and on purpose. This is what some people instinctively know, other people don't realize. Same thing happening here. But some people haven't figured out what the ultimate objective of this is here. But it is happening much more rapidly in Europe. And you can see the devastation that is being caused by it. Virtual national identities are being watered down and overwhelmed and overpopulated and overcome numerically by immigrants. And the similarities, just like our federal government is forcing states to do things they don't want to do regarding immigration, so the European Union is requiring its member nations to be accommodating in ways they don't want to be. And what the European Union is actually attempting, and you've heard John Kerry talk about a borderless world. You've heard some liberal elites in this country speak longingly of that day in the future when there are no borders. John Lennon sang about it in the song Imagine. They literally dream one day there will not be any nations. There will not be any borders. It's just going to be a global thing run by a global elite. And everything will remain where it is, but there won't be any dividing lines. We will all be united, and we will all be in utopia, and it'll all be wonderful. But if Great Britain gets out of the European Union, then the European Union tanks, and then other countries are going to fall out too. It's going to be a domino thing. It will not just be the Great Brits getting out. That'll be stage one. If this vote Thursday happens and they exit, it's going to cause other nation states to get out of the European Union. And all those people who set it up to benefit themselves, the elites, the establishment of Western Europe, are going to be huge, huge losers. And it's interesting to note, folks, that all of the elites, the entire establishment, the media, all elected officials, all government types in the European Union are practically united in their opposition to Brexit. But it's close. The vote is close because the people of Great Britain are sick of living with the results of a large governing body of people who aren't even Brits making decisions for their country. Well, yeah, it has some members in the European Union. It's got some representatives there, but it's got representatives from all kinds of European countries. It's these nations that joined the European Union, I think, did so in a misguided way. In fact, Margaret Thatcher warned of this way back. I was sent a story from Front Page Magazine, David Horowitz's website. The EU referendum and Thatcher's vision is the title of the piece. Now, the author didn't print out. I apologize for that, but it's at Front Page Magazine. It's something weird about Apple has the Safari website has a program called Reader, and when you print, it doesn't print the author. It's a bug. And if you don't make a note of it, then you don't get it. Anyway, it begins this way. Last year, I attended the annual lecture of the Margaret Thatcher Center in London. I got a lot of surprised looks from other guests when I told them I made a long 3-day trip solely to attend this series of lectures. Maybe it was out of the ordinary, but I had my reasons, chief among them the fact that I'm a historian, a perspective that informs me of how starved for great statesmanship the whole world is today. The only current world-class statesman I can think of is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he is a big Thatcherite. It is through this circle of Thatcher fans that I have gained and maintained great friends on the other side of the Atlantic and have watched with great interest as they set out to fight for a leave vote in this week's EU referendum. And since the spirit of Lady Thatcher hangs over my every interaction with the UK, I felt it worthwhile to revisit an interview that Lady Thatcher gave Forbes magazine in October of 1992 dealing with this very topic. Her wisdom was precious. Here's what she said in 1992 in the Forbes interview about this whole mess. Nations feel comfortable in their own nationhood. Pride enables you to do things you otherwise might not be able to do. Europe should be each group in its own national identity. Don't try to extinguish that, which is exactly what the EU is trying to do. If you try to push people into a mold, you're going to create resentment, and you're creating it now. The Maastricht Treaty was a treaty which went totally in the wrong direction. It was a treaty which took us from being an economic community with a kind of common market as our objective to trying to create a European Union with citizenship of that union as the objective. She worried that 80% of Britain's economic decisions would be made in Brussels, and she was right. What is it about some of these people who enjoy the freedoms of democracy, who enjoy the elected representatives being accountable to the people? Why do they want to substitute bureaucracy for freedom? What's the matter? What happened to them? I will tell you that European Commission loves its powers. Power for the sake of power. It's not what we fought for. We fought for democracy, freedom, and justice. We just re-elected our parliament. What for? Is parliament just going to be a talking show now? Remember, this is 1992. She said that centralized international schemes like single currencies were doomed to fail because, quote, we're all at different levels of development of our economy. That's another thing. They tried to they did. They unified all these different nations. They got rid of individual currencies, replaced it with the euro, but they combined economies that were totally distinct. The European Union is one of the reasons, not the sole reason, one of the reasons Greece is in the mess that it's in. International schemes doomed to fail because we're all at different levels of development of our economies. Massive extra subsidies from the rest of us for them, or massive movements of immigration from their countries to ours, both would cause resentment and not produce harmonious development. We should each of us be proud to be separate countries, cooperating together. Why unify? Everything she predicted that would go wrong in 1992, she was right about. Everything. She believed in a European common market as a trading bloc. Well, no, she did. She actually thought that it wouldn't work. She thought that it won't do. It's not big enough minded. What she thought Europe needed is a two-continent free trade area that would take in Eastern Europe and embrace North America, including Mexico. It would then be the backup, the political backup for NATO as the defense unit. Anyway, it goes on. Everything she predicted, everything she warned people about in 1992 that would go wrong by becoming members of the European Union, she was dead right about. And now the people of Great Britain want out. And the vote is Thursday. And the elites in the European Union are going to do everything they can to make sure that vote fails. Not because they're interested in the British people, like elites and the establishment everywhere. It's all about maintaining what they have and perhaps even growing it. We'll be back. Don't go.